Pernell's been there a decade, really, before Oscar De La Hoya ever burst on the scene. And so it's one of those rare occasions when you get two people who legitimately should be considered for the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world actually fighting each other.
Recognized as the pound-for-pound king of boxing, Pernell, Sweet Pea, Whitaker, the Golden Boy, Oscar De La Hoya.
Hey everybody, welcome to our look at Pernell Whitaker, Oscar De La Hoya, April 12th on pay-per-view from Las Vegas. I'm Dave Bontempo along with Tony Page. And Tony, one of those rare occasions you get to look at great fighters going against great fighters.
In 1997, the best fighting the best, that was this sport is supposed to be all about. Sometimes we don't get it. We get champs fighting guys that don't deserve to be there. But this time, that's all it is, the best.
It has that pound-for-pound label. Pernell Whitaker has held that in the past. Oscar De La Hoya, the heir apparent that way, and we've got an interesting matchup of styles.
One guy likes to put pressure, another guy likes to be slick. It's the type of fight that everyone can just pick somebody and root for them.
Who will impose as well? Pernell Whitaker, Oscar De La Hoya, a fight to watch.
Well, regardless of where you judge each fighter to be in terms of their careers, this is still a fight between two of the top 10 pound-for-pound fighters in boxing. That is so rare, and that's reason for boxing fans and boxing media to get excited. It just doesn't happen that often, and when it happens, we have to savor it, look forward to it, and we'll see who wins.
Whitehouse cornerman pleading with him to let his hands go. He needs something dramatic, but it is De La Hoya who comes out with a flurry of punches to knock the champion down for the third time.
No. Two more rounds. No.
Is over. The fight is over. Oscar De La Hoya is the new WBO junior lightweight champion of the world.
Oscar De La Hoya captured his first world title after a mere handful of fights. The Golden Boy had fulfilled the prophecy. He was as good as advertised, and his promising career was just underway. Well, Tony, Oscar De La Hoya had one title in the bank very early, and that was just the beginning for him.
He's such a young guy who went on to capture so many titles, and the interesting thing, Dave, he didn't fight has-beens. He fought guys who had maybe one loss, were undefeated, guys who wanted to prove something, and De La Hoya just knocked them down.
Something about being in the lower weight classes, you do have to prove yourself more against those big names. There are no setup fights, really.
There seems to be so much talent in so many different divisions that guys just look for that big payday, and this was what Oscar's trying to do.
Well, Oscar De La Hoya had a habit of making great fighters look ordinary. Let's take a look at some vintage Oscar De La Hoya. De La Hoya stormed into the next phase of his career with a title unification bout. Rafael Ruelas had lost only once, and though he was strong, Oscar predicted he would capitalize on Ruelas' awkwardness. He was a prophet. Ruelas left himself open early, and De La Hoya closed the show.
He is very wobbly. De La Hoya with a big opportunity here.
A right hand by De La Hoya, and down goes Ruelas for the second time in round two. The count is 5, and Ruelas is up already. He looks at Steele and says he's okay.
The 3 knockdown rule is in effect for this fight.
Plenty of time, 120 remaining in round 2. De La Hoya with the pressure, and the fight is over. Oscar De La Hoya has defeated Rafael Ruelas with a second-round technical knockout.
Gennaro Hernandez had an unbeaten record and was a title holder moving up in weight. He was tall, lanky, and elusive, presenting angles De La Hoya had not faced before. By the middle rounds, De La Hoya had solved the riddle. Hernandez would indicate that emphatically after round 6.
De La Hoya back to his corner, taking a quick walk around the ring, and he doesn't want any more. Canelo Hernandez quit.
Jesse James Leija had been a highly regarded fighter. He had held the title. He had been used to winning, but he had never faced a buzzsaw named De La Hoya. Despite his ability, Leija became just another blue chipper who looked ordinary against Oscar. Julio Cesar Chavez was a legend. He was De La Hoya's boyhood idol. Was. Even legends take the fall against the younger, faster gunslingers. This one, strangely, was no contest.
Chavez is now bleeding from the nose as well as the eye. I remember De La Hoya.
De La Hoya pouring it on. Chavez now not
Look at that nose. Look at the nose. That's worse. His nose is worse than his eye. In his last fight, he broke his opponent's nose.
Blood pouring from the nose and the eye, and Joe Cortez calls a halt. He'll have the doctor look at this cut.
That's it. Say so much.
It is all over. Oscar De La Hoya.
Miguel Angel Gonzalez tried to upset the presentation of the Oscars. He wins for best opponent in a supporting role by taking the Golden Boy to a decision when it was least expected. Though he incurred trouble in round 5, Gonzalez was resilient. In his first major test outside of Mexico City, Gonzalez carried himself well. For De La Hoya, Gonzalez proved to be gritty, durable, and underrated. He also surfaced when the boxing world expected De La Hoya, Pernell, Whitaker. That was a dangerous combination.
Everywhere I go, people would be talking about Pernell Whitaker. You know, you're gonna face the very best, pound for pound. Just get through this guy. You'll take him out easy and go to the Pernell Whitaker fight. A lot of people were kind of very, very positive on me winning this fight in just easy. But just me thinking about Pernell Whitaker in the future and then thinking about that I beat Chavez. I mean, you have this guy in between who's 40-0. That doesn't really present a big threat. So then you think, this guy's not going to be a very tough fight. So mentally, I really wasn't too focused.
De La Hoya may have had trouble getting up for Gonzalez, but he will not forget him. Gonzalez refused to go quietly, leaving his mark in a glaring way. For the first time ever, Oscar looked like he'd been in a fight.
When you're physically prepared for any fight, which I was, you don't let anything get to you, like blows behind the back or blows behind the head. If he hits you with a low blow, or if he cuts you, or if he bruises you up, that there does not distract you. I was prepared physically, and whatever he did to me did not catch my attention. I was in the best shape of my life physically. That bruise there under my eye, of course, 10th, 11th round, 12th round, I really couldn't see from it, but it wasn't a big distraction. I was just, I was focused because I was prepared physically for that fight.
Miguel Angel Gonzalez presented a different type of problem for Oscar De La Hoya as he continued to pressure the Golden Boy by coming forward as he constantly threw right hand after right hand while not backing down at all. But De La Hoya was able to use his boxing skills to overwhelm and outpoint Gonzalez. But Pernell Whitaker presents an altogether different problem for De La Hoya, as Sweet Pea is a southpaw and a crafty one at that. Whitaker, a 6-time champ, comes at you from all angles with a combination of speed and tactical awkwardness with his simple intent of confusing, then defeating his opponents.
We rarely fight fighters who are lefty. It's rare in boxing. And, Pernell Whitaker, he's considered to be one of the best pound for pound in the world, and him being southpaw, just that fact there is going to be very difficult for me. It's going to be a very tough fight, but I feel that physically and mentally I'm going to be in the best shape, guaranteed in the best shape of my life.
I have to be in control of the fight from the beginning. And once I can establish that control, then, I don't know how he's going to react. So, but once I get a game plan, once we have our game plan set, then I can go in there and do what I have to do to get him in control. I think I'm taking a lot of experience over him, and I have to take advantage of that. Because I can't go and I can't look for something to happen against this kid. This kid is an excellent fighter, and I give him the credit for being an excellent fighter, but right now I feel like he's just not ready for this level.
He'll be ready. The first couple of rounds might be a little shaky for him because he hasn't been in with a guy that has all the tools that Whitaker has, the savvy and the experience. But he'll progress. They'll find a way to deal with it. And if he does solve it early, it could be a quick fight.
What you have to remember is every great old champion is capable of summoning up one final great performance. James J. Braddock, who everybody wrote off, did it when he licked Max Baer. Sugar Ray Robinson was finished, retired for 4 years, came back, lost a fight, and then won the title 3 times after that. Sugar Ray Leonard was retired, came back and beat Marvin Hagler. And most recently, Evander Holyfield, who nobody gave a shot to, was able to find a way to beat Mike Tyson. So you can never count out a champion like Pernell Whitaker, yet you can't overlook what he's capable of doing.
Tony, Pernell Whitaker has been on top for so long. Oscar De La Hoya, somebody coming up, ready to achieve the mantle. Great matchup that way.
Oh, it's always supposed to be about that in boxing. The old lion is supposed to beat back the young lion who wants to take what's his. If Pernell Whitaker can just do what he's supposed to do, and Oscar De La Hoya can do what he's supposed to do, we got one of the greatest fights on paper.
Because Pernell Whitaker wants to use the ring, Oscar De La Hoya wants to make it shorter.
It's up to Pernell. It'd be about the size of a football field. De La Hoya would like it in a phone booth. So it's going to be an interesting little battle right in the middle of the ring.
Well, Pernell Whitaker and Oscar De La Hoya getting ready to go April 12th on pay-per-view at the Thomas & Mack Center in Las Vegas. Let's take a closer look at vintage Sweet Pea Whitaker.
Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker, the WBC welterweight champion, is the consummate ring tactician who hopes to give Oscar De La Hoya fits on April 12th. Whitaker controls his fights with blazing speed, accurate punches, and defensive angles not seen since the days of Archie Moore. Against Greg Haugen, Whitaker outfought the gritty IBF lightweight champ in capturing his first of 6 world titles from lightweight to junior middleweight. In a classic matchup against Mexican legend Julio Cesar Chavez, Whitaker used his speed and ring generalship to slow down the on-rushing challenge of the super lightweight kingpin. The judges ruled the bout a draw, but the world knew Chavez was a thoroughly beaten fighter. Next, Whitaker defended his title against James Buddy McGirt in a rematch that proved Whitaker had silenced all his critics and showed the world he still is the man, as he easily defeated the former 2-time champ. Pernell Whitaker has defeated a baker's dozens of world champ during his 13-year career, and he beat them using his vast arsenal of weapons that have proudly earned him the label of boxing's best pound-for-pound fighter in the world.
I think Pernell is one of the best fighters of all time. I mean, he's had an enormous number of title fights. He's won them all. Really and truly, he should be undefeated because he has one draw on his record, that against Chavez, and he clearly beat Chavez. And then he has this loss, so-called loss to Ramirez in France, and many people say that he clearly won that fight. And so if those decisions had been fair, Pernell Whitaker, after having more than 40 fights, would be undefeated. So I think he's going to go down in history as one of the greatest fighters of all time.
Good evening, gentlemen. You received your rules early in the day. I expect you to obey these rules. Let's have a nice, clean fight. Good luck to the both of you.
Before Pernell Whitaker could concentrate on Oscar De La Hoya and the big fight in April, he first had to defend his title against Cuba's Diabelos Hurtado, who was a difficult opponent for Whitaker to get psyched up for. Was he looking down the road till April? It's always hard to concentrate against an opponent who's perceived to be a stepping stone.
And Hurtado, big right hand. Whitaker is down, the right hand lead.
We didn't take him for granted. But, the kid came ready to fight. And that's what I was most of all impressed with, the way they did come out, and he surprised our whole camp. But we had to just wait. It was just a matter of time, and I just had to wait and be patient. And once I was patient, and once I was catching him and caught up to him, then, but I'm not going in there obviously looking at knocking the one out. And that's what I needed, and I'm glad I got it.
Well, I have no problem talking about it because it was one of the most thrilling moments in a long time. I mean, it was scary for 10 rounds. Hurtado, everybody underestimated him and his style. He proved to be a very, very good fighter. But the way Pernell did it, I mean, it made it so exciting. I mean, it was terrific. Look, the way it ended, I'm happy, but the first 10 rounds, it was scary.
I think we could possibly break a record in the state of Nevada from a gaming perspective in betting on this fight. The old record was held by Hagler Leonard. That was broken by Holyfield Tyson and also by De La Hoya Chavez. This fight, again, because you have the crossover and because you have arguably the two best pound-for-pound fighters, you could do a new record for that. Certainly from a standpoint of the town, I think it is going to be electric, as I said.
Well, Tony, the big fights in Las Vegas, the big bettors, the big money, this should be no exception.
I like fights like this. I like when there's a big fight, big numbers, big people. Everybody shows up for a fight like this. It's the type of thing that, as I always say, people in the past look to boxing to really get the juices flowing. That's what this fight's all about.
This was all set up before Pernell Whitaker fought Hurtado, and we had some danger there.
Sometimes you take your eye off the prize and you lose it. Pernell was not concentrating against Hurtado, and he gets dropped. And I know everybody panicked at that point because, oh no, there goes the fight I want to see, but he did the job.
Oscar De La Hoya was a little nervous himself at ringside that night, had a big smile on afterward as Pernell Whitaker was able to step it into higher gear.
I kept waiting for Oscar to run into the corner to give some advice because he wanted to save that payday. But it was a good job by Whitaker. He showed the championship heart by coming back and taking the title back.
He had the adversity, he came on strong, and Pernell Whitaker needs a caliber challenge to get totally up.
I think Pernell absolutely needs this fight, and if you really want to put in perspective the greatness of his career, it's the fact that time and time again, in fights where it would be impossible for any normal person to be motivated, he somehow managed to rise up and win them. If you look at the records of the great champions, all of them, there were bad nights where they lost, where they were not 100%, where they were unmotivated. It's very hard for anyone to go to work day in and day out and feel the same way about their job. A fight like this is easy because Pernell will be so motivated, and the fact that the odds are against him will make it even easier to get motivated because he will now be changing from that position of having to win and being expected to win, which is the most pressure you can ever have on you, to not being expected to win when you know in your heart that you're the man. So I think this one's going to be a lot of fun.
I think he'll find a way to get enough, like he did the other night against Hurtado, coming back strong in the 11th round and knocking him out when he absolutely had to have it. This fight, he's been waiting for a fight like this since the Chavez fight, so I believe he'll just find that reserve and he'll have enough.
Pernell's been performing for so long. He's had trouble getting motivated for fights the last couple of years. It showed in the first Wilfredo Rivera fight. He almost got caught and almost lost. And it showed the other night. I mean, even though he knew he had the De La Hoya fight waiting for him and it should have motivated him, I think he got caught looking by it a little bit, and he almost got in trouble against Hurtado the other night. He needs the biggest fight possible at this point in his career to even get him into fighting. Otherwise, he would just retire. But De La Hoya is the biggest fight out there, and he's real excited about it.
Welcome back to our look at Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker, Oscar De La Hoya, April 12th in Las Vegas on pay-per-view. I'm Dave Bontempo along with Tony Page. Well, Tony, it's going to come down to predictions. Everybody's interested. Who do you like?
I guess I have to. I got to go with Oscar. I think he's bigger. I think he's taller. He has more power. But don't count Pernell Whitaker out because he has this knockout punch which he never had before. So Oscar has to be careful, but I think he ekes out a decision.
I kind of like Oscar as well. And you know, all the people picking, they look at your last fight very heavily, and Whitaker had Hurtado.
Whitaker had a little bit of problems. Oscar had a little bit of problems. But Oscar, he's been around doing so many different things. Sometimes you wonder, is he really concentrating on the job at hand, or is he enjoying himself as a celebrity? It's so easy for a young fighter to be seduced by the lure of the bright lights and celebrities. But Oscar De La Hoya is focused on the task at hand because this is an old-fashioned mega fight.
Well, with the professor being in my corner, with having the perfect team that we have now, I feel that we're going to have the perfect game plan for him. We're going to figure out maybe 3 or 4 different game plans for Pernell Whitaker, because of course we're going to face a lefty fighter, but it's not something that we're going to be confused by. It's going to be a very difficult fight, but we'll figure out something. I mean, Pernell Whitaker, he has a very awkward style, very different style, but we can always figure something out. And that's what a champion is all about. That's what a good training camp is all about, figuring out your opponent's game plan and conquering them inside that ring. And that's what we're going to do that night.
We'll have to figure out a way we can throw him off balance and keep him guessing and keep him thinking and, see what he can do. Besides just doing the basic, see if he got any tricks with him, and just be a scientist out there. Just go out there and do what I have to do. For 13 years I've been doing.
If there's anything we learned from Evander Holyfield's fight against Tyson, it's that we shouldn't underestimate what great fighters can do till the end of their careers. Whitaker will be very pumped up. Do I think he's on the downside? Yes. Can he summon the Pernell Whitaker of old for one fight? If he's pumped up enough, the answer is very possibly yes. Will that be enough to win? That remains to be seen.
Decade by decade, the welterweight division has provided some of the most memorable moments in boxing history. Yet, not since the electrifying 1981 seesaw battle between Sugar Ray Leonard and Thomas Hearns have fight fans of the 147-pounders had as much to look forward to until tonight. Pernell Whitaker and Oscar De La Hoya, a dream matchup between 2 Olympic gold medalists whose professional achievements include a multitude of titles and whose meeting tonight raises 2 big questions. Never before has Oscar De La Hoya fought as high as 147 pounds. If he was able to knock out 20 of his 23 previous opponents in lower weight classes, will he have the stamina, power, and quickness fighting as a welterweight against Pernell Whitaker, who is no stranger to this division?
People haven't seen my power at 147 because I've never fought at 147. People are going to witness a different style, more power, more speed. Once I face Pernell Whitaker, I'm going to have to go after him and chase him. And not try to look for a knockout, but try to just put my combinations together and try to just land as many punches as I can.
1997 marks Pernell Whitaker's 14th year as a professional fighter. Despite a stellar career of 40 victories and 1 very controversial loss, Whitaker's recent performances have critics questioning if his days are numbered.
I have had some great days, but my best days are far from behind me. As well as I've done, already underdog. He's a good fighter. He has never in his life been in there with a fighter like Pernell Whitaker. I want this fight to be remembered as one of the greatest knockouts Pernell Whitaker has produced.
16 years have passed since boxing fans last witnessed an event of this magnitude in the welterweight division. Tonight, we'll see if Pernell Whitaker versus Oscar De La Hoya could one day rank among the classic matchups of the 147-pound division.
Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, TVKO presents Whitaker De La Hoya, pound for pound. Now the night begins with Jesus Lopez taking on Eric Morrell.
That'll be followed by a junior lightweight bout featuring 1996 Olympian Floyd Mayweather against Bobby Geeper. Then welterweight Alfonso Sanchez will face Irish Mickey Ward. The one and only Eric Butterbean Esch meets Big Ed White. And bantamweight Paulie Ayala battles Nestor Lopez. And then, in our main event, Pernell Whitaker against Oscar De La Hoya for the welterweight championship of the world. Pound for Pound is being brought to you by Budweiser, Beechwood aged for a crisp, clean, classic taste. And by AT&T, by Speedstick by Menon, and by Florsheim Shoes, the soul of success. And welcome to Las Vegas, Nevada, where as evening approaches in this desert city, excitement continues to build in anticipation for the greatest welterweight attraction since Ray Leonard and Thomas Hearns squared off for the first time nearly 16 years ago. The venue for tonight's welterweight championship contest right here at the Thomas & Mack Center, where later this evening, WBC welterweight title holder Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker will put his belt on the line against the Golden Boy Oscar De La Hoya. And good evening, everyone. I'm James Brown, and welcome to TVKO's presentation of Championship Boxing. Well, you know, this is the one that folks have been talking about for quite some time. Two of the biggest stars in the non-heavyweight division, Pernell Whitaker and Oscar De La Hoya, going at it, trying to answer the question in most people's minds as to who is the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Well, that question will be answered later this evening, but up first, we've got some preliminary action coming your way. And for the guys who will be calling that action, let's take you downstairs ringside to Larry Merchant, Roy Jones Jr., and a man who was suited up despite a recently surgically repaired shoulder, our anchor, Jim Lampley.
All right, thank you very much, James Brown. 5 preliminary bouts leading up to the main event between Whitaker and De La Hoya. We'll keep you company through all of them. Let's start the evening with a brief comment on the main event as we look down the road, first with Larry Merchant. And Larry, so many questions have been asked about Oscar De La Hoya and Pernell Whitaker in the weeks leading up to this bout. Now, in your mind, as we look ahead an hour or two toward the main event, what are the critical remaining questions about the two combatants?
It's about clocks, Jim. Can you turn the clock back? Can you accelerate your clock? Can Pernell Whitaker at 33 turn back his great old antique clock to the magic that helped him dominate his opponents for so long? Can Oscar De La Hoya at 24 accelerate his digital clock to be able to handle the most difficult opponent of his career? And what if they both prove successful in that endeavor? The clock is ticking toward the answers, Jim.
And we'll learn when the main event takes place. Let's take a glimpse ahead through the eyes, though, and the thoughts of America's greatest Olympic boxer of 1988, 3-division world champion Roy Jones. Roy, first in the case of Whitaker, anybody who's seen Pernell's last 3 or 4 fights knows that for him to have a chance to win tonight, he must go back to a level of performance that typified years earlier in his career. Is he too old to do that?
No, he's not. I think Pernell Whitaker has all the reasons in the world tonight to bring himself back up to the level that he used to perform at his best at. He's not an old fighter. He hasn't had many rough fights. He does not have wear and tear on his body. He doesn't have any reason to not be able to come back at least one more time to prove that he's still the man in the welterweight division.
When you look at De La Hoya's career, which has progressed so rapidly to this point, is it your instinct that this is another case of perfect timing, a la his matchup with Chavez, or is all of this happening too fast for Oscar?
I think it's a matter of being perfect time. I think the time was right for Oscar De La Hoya to have a shot at Pernell Whitaker. Whitaker is at the door of exiting. He's already had a brilliant career. Nothing you could do to tarnish his career at all. Oscar, however, wants to have a brilliant career. Now is the time, not another date, not another year, not another hour, not another minute. Now is the time for Oscar De La Hoya to face Pernell Whitaker.
All right, let's start the evening, however, in the bantamweight division and take a look.